Chapter 1. A trifling surprise. It was a Tuesday morning, but that wasn't as important as the fact that Norton woke up on a Tuesday morning that happened to be 600 years in the future. How did he know? He heard it on the news as his morning alarm went off. Instead of his favorite hits from the 80s playing on his clock radio, a large holographic display turned on, followed by surround sound that echoed through his bedroom. The alarm sounded like some mishmash of noise, honks, and sound effects, followed by soothing music before an announcer's voice echoed. Welcome back to WFK Zork Schmoop News. Today is August 23rd, 2624, and traffic is going to be a little crazy, folks. In fact, it's going to be a little delulu out there. So watch out because the bussing 8-star Prumblewurtner is going to be in town. The news anchor continued while Norton tuned out and rubbed his eyes. A green curvaceous woman wearing scanty clothing appeared on the hologram. He wanted to get a second look, as Norton may have been in slight shock, but he was not blind. This must have been the person the news anchor was talking about causing all the ruckus. Sitting up, he recalled his activities from the night before. He went to work, went to the market and picked up some groceries, came home, and made his famous birthday trifle to take to the office as today was his birthday. Norton was not a popular man, but his famous birthday trifles were, especially when they got the attention of the front desk secretary, Molly, who had always been kind to Norton, greeting him daily and even offering to split her lunch with him when he forgot it. As he tried to get a grip on his surroundings, it was eerie. Everything in his room looked the same, just more futuristic. He stepped out of the bed, and the moment his foot hit the ground, a series of noises were heard as the shower started. The scent of coffee filled the air. Something that sounded like a toaster hummed, and the hologram blinked with a series of women in bikinis saying, "Good morning, Norton. Happy birthday, big boy. Your breakfast will be ready soon. Your shower is warm and ready for you." One of the holographic girls actually looked in his direction and blinked. Norton scratched his head and just walked into the bathroom to take his morning shower, as he was not really sure of what else to do. Spotting a large, upright mirror, he stared at himself for a moment. He looked the same. Happy 40th. Oh boy. Let's figure out what we got ourselves into now. After a moment of self-reflection, Norton got into the shower, which had what felt like state-of-the-art dispensers and multiple shower heads, and a set of different kinds of soap labeled in a weird, broken-up version of English with symbols. Norton washed up, got dressed, and went to the kitchen. Opening the fridge, to his dismay, there it was, the trifle he made the night before. He grabbed it out of the fridge and placed it on the counter when he heard a noise outside his townhouse. It sounded mechanical, and an AI voice played from somewhere nearby. "Your taxi has arrived for work, Mr. Cobblebottom. Do not forget your sunglasses and watch on the table by the door. Have a nice day, and happy birthday, Mr. Cobblebottom." How handy was that? He didn't have to drive to work, and he always lost his keys, glasses, and watch, but they were in a neat tray by the front door. He looked around the kitchen for some sort of Tupperware or cake holder to put the trifle in. He said, confused. "Mr. Cobblebottom, is there a problem?" He looked around, trying to figure out where the voice was coming from. Yes, there is," he said hesitantly. "I need to take the trifle to work." Within a moment, the plate the trifle was sitting on made a slight mechanical noise as a glass dome seemed to emit from the bottom of the plate and meet at the top, covering the trifle. "Compliance, Mr. Cobblebottom. I hope this works. Have a nice day. Please leave immediately, as you now have only 29 minutes and 41 seconds to get to work when, on average, it takes you 32 minutes in total to arrive at your desk." Norton was curious. "Oh, is there a way I can go faster?" he asked the AI voice. "Yes, you will have to run. Your speed is on average about 5 minutes slower than the average humanoid, but that may accelerate the time between your arrival time and your morning visit to the bathroom. You must leave now. You have 28 minutes and 38 seconds to arrive at work. Have a nice day, Mr. Cobblebottom." Norton huffed, grabbed his things, his trifle, and ran out the door. Outside his house, there seemed to be a vehicle waiting for him. It was futuristic looking, and the door slid open to the side, similar to a monorail but on a vehicle that held about 8 people. There was a group of, we'll call them, people who looked up, and one waved. "Ah, Norton. We figured the birthday boy wasn't running at his regular pace today." The individual waving was dressed like a professional, holding a briefcase, and wore glasses. If Norton could identify only one thing off, it was that the man seemed to be a full-grown, talking lizard. Norton blinked a few times, holding his trifle. "The thank you?" he said, sitting down and buckling his seatbelt. The lizard man continued as everyone else seemed to be on their watches. It seemed like a small hollow came up from the watch as people scrolled through a small holographic feed in front of them. "Oh, it's your usual birthday cake. What a treat. We are all excited to have a bite at the office," he said insistently. Norton wasn't sure how to answer other than, "It's a trifle." He'd rather just arrive at work in one piece as the vehicle seemed to take off. There was no driver. However, the vehicle seemed to know where it was going. Leaving his neighborhood, the differences were subtle. As they got closer to the city, he could see lines above with actual speed railways. Underneath them seemed to be these pods with individuals in them. They looked like cycles but floating in the air, attached from one building to another. Norton supposed it would be a great way to stay healthy and get a bit of exercise. The lizard man continued talking about things that had to do with work. Norton wasn't sure how many "that's crazy, you don't say," and wows he had in him as a response. Finally arriving at work, he exited the vehicle to a building in the same location as his work, but instead of a shabby telecom office, it had turned into a skyscraper with wording and advertisements everywhere. Norton worked in marketing, and he wasn't great at it, but he wasn't horrible at it either. He was just average and got the job done. The great thing about Norton was that he was always willing to take overtime without complaint, which made his bosses happy. As he entered the office, he remembered the rude AI in his house telling him what a slowpoke he was, so he waved to the lizard man and ran into the building. Except he had no idea where he was going. Running in, there was a front desk with a lovely plain woman dragon lizard thing of a shorter stature. "Mr. Cobblebottom, happy birthday." At least somebody knew who he was. Yes. It seems I celebrated too hard. Can you tell me what floor I'm on again?" The miniature dragon lizard woman cackled as she seemed to lean forward in an attempt to show him her cleavage as his glasses slid down his nose. "Oh, you're so funny, Mr. Cobblebottom. It's on the 107th floor. You know that." Norton cleared his throat and nodded, running off towards the elevators. There seemed to be a series of elevators, each with a different elevator operator wearing a futuristic version of an elevator operating uniform from the 20th century. This one, however, looked like a Bigfoot sporting a posh British butler accent, similar to the butlers in Norton's favorite superhero movies. "Ah, Mr. Cobblebottom, strap in, sir." Norton was very confused. Strap in? The operator pointed to an area where he would literally strap himself in, with indentations for 2 shoes. "Let me take that for you, sir," the elevator operator said, grabbing for the trifle. Norton gave it to the man, who secured it in a small compartment that opened within the elevator and held it steady. "All right, sir. Up we go. 107th floor, the operator said. And at the same time it took Norton to blink, they were on the 107th floor. For a moment, Norton felt like he couldn't even breathe. He'd never fathomed going so fast on anything his entire life. No wonder he had to strap in. This was a damn death trap. The elevator operator took the trifle out and handed it to Norton. "Have a lovely day, Mr. Cobblebottom." As Norton ran out to find his desk, as he entered a new floor, a receptionist was in front, a man and a woman who greeted Norton. "Oh, sir, happy birthday." Norton, having no idea where he was going, had to come up with any idea to get to his desk without people knowing that he had no idea where the hell he was or what he was doing. "Oh yes, Ms." He looked at the woman's desk for a nameplate or on her for a name tag. Eve Zero Re it read. What in the ass? Norton thought to himself. Reading it again, he realized it was Avery. Norton just sighed deeply and looked at the woman. "Ms. Avery, can you please help me take this to my desk? I have the worst headache. I'm feeling a little sensitive to light. Can you lead the way?" The lady seemed happy to comply as she ran out from behind her desk, revealing on second thought a mechanical leg and arm. "Of course, let's get you to your desk," she said happily. As she placed him in his cubicle, it all seemed oddly similar. After the woman put the trifle down, she looked at him with a pout. "I thought you'd notice my bionic upgrades. These were the ones I was telling you about. They're mewing." Norton cleared his throat. Yes, very stylish and very nice. Thank you, but I really must get to work." She smiled and walked off. He sat down, trying to figure out the intricacies of his desk. There seemed to be a large screen but no keyboard, just a blank pad where one should be. It wasn't long before what he assumed to be his boss came walking over. It was the only man finely dressed in a suit, walking out of a large, oversized corner office. He was tall, with a smaller third eye above his two eyes and what appeared to be gills. Cobblebottom, happy birthday. Look, since it's your big day, we won't be piling you up with extra cases. Today, you'll actually get out of here on time, he laughed. Norton ha-ha'd along with him forcefully. However, the only deal is that we get to have some of that delicious Cobblebottom birthday cake. Norton cleared his throat, trifle, correcting him. His boss laughed. Oh, Cobblebottom, snapping and putting his fingers into finger guns, Sigma, he said before going serious once more but with a shit-eating grin still on his face. Oh, I almost forgot. A big client is going to be here today. Prumbla Wertner is promoting her new line of inflatable gluteal leggings. They are all the rage. Ladies can now make their butts 3 times their normal size. Norton was hoping that being 600 years into the future, things like flying cars would be the norm instead of inflatable butts, but he nodded and responded with an all right. His boss then continued jabbering on. Oh, and bring that birthday cake of yours to the meeting. I think it will really put things in our favor. Norton sighed, correcting once more, trifle. His boss started to walk away, ignoring his correction. Keep up the good work. The morning seemed to go by quickly as Norton fiddled with the things at his desk, trying to figure out what the hell he was doing and how to access all the files. To his left was a younger man in his cube, quietly working away. To his right, there seemed to be another one of those lizard creatures, similar to the talkative one in the vehicle this morning. As he looked over, she smiled. Morning, Norton. My brother told me you were running a little late today, after he saw you in the taxi. Norton nodded a few times. This was the first person that called him by his first name, which was a little curious. Happy birthday, she whispered softly as she reached around from her cube into his and placed a small item on his desk. She whispered, put it away and don't open it till you get home. He nodded and did as the woman asked. He looked at her. For some reason I'm not feeling myself. Can you help me log in? I don't know what's going on. The woman stood up and came right over. Oh, sometimes the eyes cope is tricky to get you logged in. She adjusted his head in front of a small hole at the top of the screen on his desk, when suddenly a hologram of a bunch of files on what looked similar to an operating system from his time popped up. There you are. We're working on Prumbla Wertner's file, taking a look at the analytics from her last sale, and using the predictions to test out all our new slogans and ads. Actually, she should be here soon. We should probably go to the conference room. If you aren't feeling well, do you want me to take over the presentation? She said softly. Norton nodded his head yes. This must be his lucky day, as this nice lizard woman was willing to be so helpful. Grabbing his trifle, he walked over to the conference room, awaiting the meeting. It wasn't long before a number of security and agents filled the room, followed by a curvaceous green dragon, lizard-looking woman with ample cleavage and long, bright pink hair. She was dressed in what looked like a mixture of both pop and the grunge scene of the 80s and 90s from his childhood. She wore bright colors, with torn black leggings and a tight bikini top. Her lips were bright pink, contrasting her green skin, and her eyes had a smoky look with shimmer covering her black winged eyeliner. His boss was schmoozing the woman as he walked inside and the door shut. He began to introduce her to everyone. Everyone seemed to be in awe, even the nice reptilian, more lizard-looking woman who sat next to him. Everyone was enthralled except him. He had no idea who the hell this woman was. As his boss began introducing her around the table, the nice lizard woman who sat next to him whispered in his ear, "Oh dear, I have to use the restroom. Such horrible timing. I better go now before the presentation starts. Please save me a piece of your trifle. You've been talking it up for weeks." She put a kind hand on his shoulder and excused herself after being introduced. After Norton was introduced, his boss talked up him and the woman previously sitting next to him. Norton Cobblebottom and Zada Bixel are 2 of the industry's best, some of our hardest workers, and they've been on the job day and night. Zada will be back shortly, and I believe we'll start with the presentations. Cobblebottom here made a birthday cake as today is his boss had no idea how old Norton was, so he made it up, 42nd birthday. And he's made us a cake. Norton sighed and said plainly, trifle. The celebrity of a woman looked at him. Oh, how lovely, Mr. Cobblebottom. I'm on a strict diet, but it looks delicious. I suppose I could cheat a little. I mean, my next item is going to be the invisible fupa clincher, making all stomachs slim and beautiful, she said with a wink. With that, Norton scooted the trifle to the middle of the table as his boss began to hand out plates, and everybody started to cut themselves a piece. It looked delicious, covered in layers of berries and cream, and something extra special at the bottom. As everyone took a bite of their piece, including Norton, their mouths watered. There was an odd reaction as everyone in the room began to not just eat at a hurried pace but gorge on the trifle, as they began to aggressively go for seconds. His boss huffed out, beginning to sweat. This is amazing, Cobblebottom. What is in this? Prumblewertner looked at him as well. Yes, my cook needs this recipe, she said as her pupils became dilated. What is in here? She demanded as she continued to shove the cake in her mouth with no decorum whatsoever. Just cream, berries, and trifle smashed against her face with her clothing covered in crumbs. Norton spoke up with a passive tone. It's, well, strawberries, raspberries, cream, and chocolate. Everybody stopped at once when they heard chocolate, while everyone was so confused but continued to shove the trifle down their gullets. He's joking, his boss said, laughing it off. His pupils dilated as well. Sweating profusely, Cobblebottom always has a sense of humor. He continued to laugh and laugh until he stood up straight and fell over. Prumblewertner gasped, looking at Norton as she fell over next, face down. As she hit the ground, the sound of air deflated from under her that seemed to be coming from her chest, making her body go from being slightly raised off the ground to being entirely flat. Every single person in the room fell over one after another. Norton looked around, his eyes wide, just as the lizard woman opened the door. He thought to himself, scrambling he heard her name earlier, Zada. That's it, she gasped. Norton. What happened? She pointed at the trifle, unable to speak. We have to get you out of here now. Zada raised her hand towards him for him to grab it. She held him tight and began to jolt him out of the room as they ran towards one of the elevators before Zada and Norton reached the elevator as she smashed the buttons to get the door open. As the elevator doors opened, revealing the same posh, accented Bigfoot elevator operator they ran in. Without waiting for him to speak, Zada punched a series of unlabeled buttons. Ground floor now, she ordered, her voice firm. The operator, taken aback, nodded. Of course, madam. Strap in, he said, pointing to the indentations for their shoes and the straps to secure them. Norton and Zada quickly strapped in. As soon as they were secure, the elevator shot downwards with dizzying speed. Norton's breath caught in his throat as they descended. The operator kept silent, his eyes wide, clearly understanding the urgency. The elevator came to a sudden stop, and the doors slid open to the ground floor. Zada wasted no time, unstrapping herself and pulling Norton along. They dashed through a series of corridors and burst out the back entrance of the building. Gasping for breath, Zada yelled into her watch, Krull. A face materialized on a hollow above her watch, a large rhino sporting a green, fluorescent mohawk and a bright pink frilly Victorian neckline. Location? Krull asked with a feminine-sounding voice, maintaining an air of composure that was in stark contrast to Zada, who was panting and scanning the surroundings. Go to the front, west side entrance of the Freud's and Reescraft Trading Company building, Zada replied. Norton was also panting, but couldn't shake the absurdity of their situation. The company he had been working for was acronym F&RT Company. He chuckled softly. Zada gave him an odd look. What's so funny? Norton grinned. Fart Co. Zada's eyes widened in shock, and she immediately clamped her hand over his mouth. Norton, do you have any idea what you just said? She hissed. Norton's eyes widened in confusion. No. Why? Zada's face flushed with a mix of anger and embarrassment. In our language, fart means eternal beauty and harmony. It's a deeply revered concept. Making light of it is incredibly offensive. Norton's eyes widened in realization and embarrassment. Oh, I'm so sorry, Zada. I didn't know. Zada took a deep breath, trying to regain her composure. Let's just focus on getting out of here before things get any worse. And please, try to be more mindful in the future. Norton nodded vigorously, feeling thoroughly chastised. Got it. I'll be more careful. Zada checked her watch as Kroll spoke up. Ada in 3, be ready to hop in. You'll recognize us, and the holodeck disappeared. Norton glanced at Zada after seeing Kroll's hologram and wanted to inquire respectfully. So what pronouns does Kroll use? Zada met his gaze. Kroll uses any and all pronouns. But above all, Kroll is Kroll. Thank you for asking instead of assuming. Norton nodded in understanding, feeling reassured. Also, Kroll doesn't appreciate anyone talking ill about pickles, so mind your tone about them. Norton looked at Zada, slightly amused. Noted. No pickle slander. Zada gave him a relieved smile before she grabbed him and skidded around the corner as a screeching vehicle with tinted windows came to a halt in front of the Freud's and Reescraft Trading Company. The music blasting from the car was audible a few blocks away, adding to the chaos of their escape. The car had no visible driver, but a large screen inside the vehicle flickered to life, showing Kroll's face now with the bright pink frilly collar prominently matching their bright pink eyeshadow. Sorry. Went to the back side of the building, Kroll said with a nod of acknowledgement. Norton hopped into the car, thinking that going to the back side of the building was a marketing opportunity for FNRT at FNRT. We've got your backside. Complete with a snap and point. He suppressed the chuckle and the thought to himself. Thank you, Norton said to Kroll. Kroll shrugged. I don't know who the hell you are, but if Zada wants you out of there, I guess it's my job to do it. Once you get here, we'll process you. And you'll be dead before you know it. Norton's eyes widened in horror. Dead? Zada instinctively placed her hand on his and gave it a reassuring squeeze. Dead? Norton repeated, his voice a whisper of dread. Kroll grinned. Hang on. We've got the coppers on our tracks, and with that, the car screeched off. Norton and Zada were thrown back into their seats as the vehicle accelerated rapidly. All Norton could think about was the chilling implication of Kroll's words. Dead?